Hey, everybody. It's a lovely Saturday morning, and this is the Daily Phillies Talk podcast. I'm Corey Seidman. He's Jim Salisbury. And wow, Jim, the Phillies landed Nick Castellanos. Move that came down late Friday night while a lot of people were probably in bed. I would imagine that, including Jim, I would imagine that many probably woke up to the news and were pleasantly surprised. I mean, this is crazy. Who thought they were going to end up with both Schwarber and Castellanos? When did you first start feeling that this was real or had a chance to actually happen?
Well, sometime on Friday, John Morosi of MLB Network had mentioned or reported that the Phillies, they were still maintaining interest, and you're like, okay, that makes sense, because I think it's incumbent on the front office to always continue to monitor what's out there. Even if you think you might be done, you continue to monitor what's out there free agent wise, see where that market might go. And then on Friday, Jason Stark was reporting that they're in serious pursuit. And when you see that, you're like, okay, well, this might happen. Then, I subsequently heard that, it's a possibility. And honestly, you monitor it all day Friday, and things were very quiet. And when it's quiet, and especially on both sides, they're working on something. And so honestly, I went to bed Friday night. I'm not I don't stay up late, so because these are long days and early mornings down here. So I went to bed last night, Friday night, thinking that it's a possibility that this could happen. And son of a gun, it happened. They get Nick Castellanos. I think it was a case of. I think they were hoping to get, Schwarber and continue to monitor the market and see what happened. And I think maybe Castellanos' market didn't develop as robustly as a lot of us thought it would, including maybe the Phillies front office and ownership. And they decided to jump on it. And, the big takeaway is, they are over the luxury tax threshold now. And that's been this buzzword and around town for years now, several years. It's like people hear what they want to hear. They're reluctant to go over the luxury tax. Well, they've always said they would go over the luxury tax for the right opportunity. Well, clearly, Nick Castellanos, they viewed him as the right opportunity. So the way I got it figured, they're about $10 million over the threshold now. And the bills don't go out until the end of the season. So, they're projected to be over. If they're not a good team, could they sell off pieces and get under it? Yeah. But if they're a really good team, could they keep adding maybe in July? Yeah, I guess so. Where they are today on the 19th of March, they line up to be over the tax. And what they've done, by their willingness to do that is created a real monster lineup. There's questions on defense, big questions. They were a poor defensive team last year. I don't think they're any better this year. Bullpen is an annual question, like some of the moves they've made down there, but those guys are going to have to click and have bounce back years. Like the starting rotation, but, Zach Wheeler's behind. But they're going to score some runs with this lineup, adding Castellanos to that crew they have. They're going to score some score some runs. So talked to Bryce Harper moments ago. He actually, as I think it's well known, his roommate is Bryson Stott, the young prospect, shortstop prospect. They're good friends, both from Vegas. And he said that Stott came downstairs this morning at the apartment they're staying at. And when Stott came downstairs, Harper said it's a good day to be a Philly. So I would imagine it's a good day for Phillies fans too. It's exciting down here. They got their first game today. Aaron Nola's on the mound. But yeah, there's some buzz in the air. Schwarber's supposed to be here on Sunday, and I don't know when Castellanos gets here. He's got to do a physical in Philly, but he'll be here soon, and the Phillies will have some thunder in their lineup.
Yeah, so just a couple things there. We talked about the luxury tax, the fact that the Phillies are about $10 million over. A lot of times people talk about the luxury tax and don't really explicitly say what the penalty would be. So the Phillies would, if they ended the year $10 million over, that would be a $2 million penalty. And when you have a $240 million payroll, $2 million is really not that significant in comparison to the total number. That's first off.
Especially to win. If you're going to win, $2 million is nothing. Now, the penalties do compound and things like that.
Right. So it would be 40% if you're a second-time offender, 50% if you're a third-time offender.
And then there are things you could lose, draft picks and whatnot that could affect you baseball-wise. But who knows where they're going to be in November? You hope they're over. You hope if they need a tweak, they tweak it. You hope they win and able to keep this unit together. They do have quite a bit of money coming off the books next year. Middle infield with Segura and Didi, that's like a total of $30 million, and you're going to have some relievers coming off. So, it lines up where this was an opportunity that made sense.
Yeah, so the Phillies now have these 5 guys who have these giant AAVs, annual average values. Bryce Harper at $25.4 million, Zach Wheeler $23.6, JT Realmuto $23.1. Castellanos at $20 million, Kyle Schwarber at $19.8, just under $20 million. After that, you mentioned that Didi and Segura come off the books next year. After that group of 5, the next highest AAV would be Aaron Nola, who's right around like $11 million. So there is money coming off the books. What you said about Castellanos' market maybe not developing the way he would have expected or the Phillies would have, personally, at the beginning of the offseason, I would have been very surprised to know that he was going to sign for 5 years, $100 million. He seemed like a guy who was going to get 6, maybe 7 years, something like $140 million. I mean, look at the price tag difference between Nick Castellanos and Chris Bryant. 7 for $182 for Chris Bryant compared to $500 for Nick Castellanos. The Phillies got Castellanos and Schwarber for $3 million less combined than the Rockies got Chris Bryant for, and that makes a difference. The Phillies needed multiple bodies in this lineup, and when you think about the different lineup structures now, you can lead Kyle Schwarber off now more realistically than you could have a few days ago when you also needed like the thunder of his bat in the middle of the lineup. Thinking about Castellanos batting behind Harper, the lefty-righty combination of those two guys who, when they're hot, are like top hitters in all of baseball. Castellanos in particular, I mean, the last few years I've just been struck by how when he's rolling, it's not like 2 weeks, not 3 weeks. It's like 6-7 weeks where he just goes on these runs where he hits 350 with a lot of damage. I know the Phillies have these defensive limitations, but obviously they constructed this lineup to try to win games like 6-5.
Yeah. And you mentioned how you thought he'd get, a bigger payday, and that's why you stay in. You always keep your nose in it and see what's happening and see where things are going. And all of a sudden, wow, we might be able to do this. And, I think the fact that they maintained a little financial and payroll flexibility in center field with bringing back Odubel Herrera at $1.75 million, and they're projecting maybe a platoon out there with Matt Vierling who play at the minimum. I think that by not going big ticket in center field, that allowed them to stay in the hunt for a deal like this. Do you have your computer up?
I do. What do you need to know?
What was last year's top 20 in OPS? Like they might have 3 of the top 15 now in Schwarber, Harper, obviously Schwarber and Castellanos.
Yeah, let me take a look. I'm calling it up right now. I mean, yeah, Castellanos is more slugging. Schwarber's more the combination of both. But, man, like just thinking about Castellanos seems like when he's on, everything's like a double to the gap. Well-struck double to the gap. Interesting point about center field because we've talked about how there were so few options there. In free agency, there weren't many options. In trade, it was going to cost you a ton if you wanted to go after a Reynolds or a Mullins. So, yeah, I guess the Phillies pivoted then, went cheap in center field, and chose to allocate resources elsewhere. I guess now the question is, so we have been talking for the last few weeks about how they're probably going to DH a different guy every day or so. There's not going to be like a steady DH. At this point, you almost need a steady DH, right? I mean, it has to be like Schwarber or a Hoskins.
I think, and again, I've tried to talk to Joe Girardi a little bit about that. The Schwarber deal, he's passed his physical. That's going to be announced as official any moment. He'll be here tomorrow. But they really play it by the rules. Until it's official, they're not going to talk about it. So he has not really gone into detail about what he's going to do with the DH. But I mean, he has intimated that it's going to kind of be a revolving door where they use that position as a way to get guys some rest. Schwarber played a little first base with Boston last year. I mean, I'm sure he'll have a first baseman's glove. He could go over there and get Reese off his feet, become the DH for a day. Castellanos can play both corners, get Bryce off his feet. Bryce becomes the DH a day. I just think they're going to kind of use it, like I said, as a way to get guys a little bit of rest here and there, and but you need to keep those bats in the lineup.
Yeah, Jim, I just called it up. So Kyle Schwarber did not qualify last year based on plate appearances, but had he qualified, Harper was first in OPS in all of baseball. Castellanos was seventh in all of baseball. Schwarber was ninth. So now all three of them in the same lineup, plus JT Realmuto, plus Rhys Hoskins. One of the other effects of this is that it like reduces the amount of pressure on guys like that. Last year, JT Realmuto spent a large part of the season as a cleanup hitter or a guy who you were relying on to produce runs. And his value is more so in his all-around skill set than it is in being like a middle-of-the-order bat. You think about the bottom of the lineup, Alec Bohm. Guy like Alec Bohm, every at-bat's not going to be under as much scrutiny as it was last year when you were looking at, again, him to be a middle-of-the-order guy. So this ripple effect is going to be felt up and down, I think.
That's a great point, especially on Real Muto. He doesn't have to feel like he has to carry. He can go out there, he can lead a pitching staff, he can help carry a pitching staff, and he doesn't have to be a bus driver on the offense. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be days he jumps behind the wheel and he's your best offensive player. But, I mean, just like you said, Real Muto's a total package player. He's not just a bat. And that's going to ease a little bit of pressure on him. So you could see good things from him. He looks really good. He looks strong. He spent a lot of time rehabbing that shoulder with a couple different physical therapists this winter. And, I think he looks good. I think that shoulder bothered him a lot more than he let on last year, throwing in, extending on the swing. So, yeah, it's a nice it's going to be a nice boost for him, I believe, as well. And you make a good point on Bohm. Maybe he can just blend in and relax and play his game. It becomes with the lengthened offense, it's going to really make it important that Bohm makes the plays over there at third base. I mean, he maybe doesn't, every at bat, like you said, it's not going to be scrutinized under a microscope, and maybe he doesn't have to be a pillar of the offense, but you're going to have to go over there and make plays because they cannot be as bad defensively as they were last year, and go where they want to go. And clearly, with this payroll and this lineup, where they want to go is October. We know that they haven't been there since 2021. I mean, ownership wants to get there, in a big way, desperately. That's why they're signing these checks. So they're going to have to play better defense, and it's going to be difficult because they haven't added, defensive type personnel. It's going to have to be better with what they have.
Jim, by quick count, I counted either 16 or 17 players on the Phillies' projected opening day roster out of 26 who were acquired via free agency or trade, which is not exactly the way that most teams want to build their roster out to sustain success. Obviously, the Phillies have done so because they're a big market team and the farm system hasn't produced the way they would have hoped. But yeah, I mean, they have to do it this season. There's no excuse, pretty much, no matter what. They have to make the playoffs. The field is expanded. It would seem like anything, even if they were to make it and get swept, that would be a disappointment. The expectations have significantly risen here this week.
No question. The expectations have soared. And, Harper was talking about that this morning. He talked about how Dave Dombrowski, John Middleton, the ownership group, with these signings this winter, they've shown faith in the team. They've shown they want to win. And he flat out said, now we owe it to them by going out and playing well and getting it done. And I thought that was good. The clubhouse does owe it to the people who sign the checks and the people who come and sit in the ballpark and cheer them on to, put out that effort. And look, it's baseball. It's not going to happen every day for you. But, over 162, you got to live up to your track records. You got to live up to your ability and your paychecks and perform for this team and get it where it needs to go.
If you're watching on YouTube and you see some people opening the door, Jim is in, what are you in, a radio booth in Clearwater?
Yeah, I'm in Clearwater in a radio booth, and they're doing the field, and they're going to have batting practice. Got a game today. Aaron Nola against Kevin Gosman. Two old Bayou Bengals, two old LSU players. Yeah, so I'm in a radio booth, and I'm probably going to get kicked out of here soon. So
I'll wrap up.
What else we got, buddy?
I'll just ask, is there any non-Castellanos news to report from Clearwater today?
Wheeler is supposed to be back today and throw a bullpen tomorrow, so that's very good news. I mean, he's going to be behind a little bit, but he needs to be Zach Wheeler if all these moves are going to, matter. He's an indispensable talent on this team, number one starter. because, you can add all the bats you want. To me, this game still comes down to what happens on that little bump out in the middle of the field. So I love what they did offensively and what they've done, and the will to win that they're showing. But they need that pitching staff, and need Zach Wheeler healthy. So he's supposed to throw a bullpen Sunday. That's good news. Schwarber's supposed to arrive on Sunday, and less than 3 weeks to go before opening day. Things are really coming together.
Yeah, I mean, less than 3 weeks. I mean, that's kind of the cool thing about how this offseason played out. If there was a cool thing, is that you don't have to wait now months to see this in action. You're going to see it in action pretty quickly here. Phillies have their first home spring game, as Jim mentioned today. NBC Sports Philly will televise all nine Phillies home games, including today's. Probably listening to this, the game's probably well underway or has finished. But yeah, really exciting times for the Phillies. Big offense they've put together, and now we'll see if everything can click. Thanks for listening to the Phillies Talk Daily Podcast. We'll be back pretty soon.